I'm going to be touching upon water, the way water and ice, when it freezes. I'm going to be touching upon that, roots of nature, and also early man that was carving into rock, or at least everyone asks the question of how past civilizations were able to cut rock without any tools. Now, there is many natural design, by natural design and looking at the world, this back pieces. So the more I've been thinking about this, and also lightning strikes, they all have something in a very same characteristic to me. So early man, or the first grips of evolution of humans from starting to use their knowledge, let's say. If I have 10 humans in a line, and we've got a rock face, and we all have a chisel, and we all position it along the side of a rock at the same position, and we take another object and we're going to smack it down, but we're all going to do it in synchronization with one another. And we begin 1, 2, 3, and we all hit at the same time. The more we all do this, the rock, by natural design, I would say, would begin to fracture, and you'll be able to take off a relatively straight line. This would take a little bit of practice, but it's not that difficult to do. You can do this yourself in the small scale. If you take an object, hit it with a hammer and go into a rock, you can cut a piece of rock directly down the middle. Now, I will dig this out of my plant pot because I've taken some sphere-shaped stone in my life. And I have to hit it in a very unique way. And when I do, I can cause that to split in half perfectly. And there are a few bits in it that might be a little bit more, it just needs then smoothing down after that. Both pieces need smoothing down, and you have a perfect table, if you like, a surface. And it doesn't really require a lot of effort at all. So that is just on something that's quite small. As I say, it's spheroid rock. I was very fascinated with it because inside the middle of it, it had a piece of iron surrounded by different rock. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, I will dig this out. It's in one of my plant pots. I put a lot of rocks in with my soil for my plants because it's very natural. Most plant owners don't ever put stones in the soil. I find that really weird. They always put them at the bottom. I put it through the bottom and all the way through the plant soil. It just bulks up the soil, and I don't have to use so much soil, among other things. And I'm fascinated with splitting open rocks. Have you seen? There are certain types of rock that you can get that look like a stone. Bit of a potato shape. Sounds like a stone, feels as solid as one. But when I smack it with a hammer, it opens up, and out comes a load of either really orange soil, and it isn't petrified horse muck or anything like this. It's stone, and either really yellow rock. Some of it is quite, what I would say is looking like the moon, you would say. It's like dusty like the moon. Well, it's not inconceivable. I haven't tested it. But I believe that these are fragments from Mars, bits of fragments from Venus. If you've ever had rocks hit into Venus, some of that scattering debris is going to come and land on the Earth. And it's not going to land as a great big hunk of it, and it's going to be so obvious to humans. No, it's going to come down as like micrometeorite. And over long processes of time, it's going to lose its magnetism. It's not going to appear as iron or anything else like that. It's just going to be a piece of rock debris that, is landed on the planet, and we call it a stone now. So and a piece from Venus, and a piece from Mars, and a piece from the moon. If something hits it hard enough, some of this debris is coming into Earth's atmosphere. No ifs or buts about it. And this is something that is really interesting to me as well. That if we have had meteorites hit the Earth in such a force, there should be prehistoric life from Earth, if we could tell that it is, in our orbit, in our solar system. You know, if we ever happen across a dinosaur, what kind of it wouldn't look obvious in the beginning, but we'd start testing it and be like, hang on a minute. How did this dinosaur get here? Or it's landed on the moon, or it's landed on Mars, or it's landed on Venus. There would have been some time where we've got to be careful not to say that we found life on Mars. Why is that? Well, look at this fossil. Well, that fossil could have come from Earth with a meteorite that hit the planet so much that it pushed up an awful lot of debris. Some of it rains back down to the Earth, but some of it is sent into the solar system, towards the sun, towards Mercury. Planet sharing in meteorites with the colossal heating, and especially when you've got one that's got an even weaker atmosphere. So the moon should have fossils on it. Few and far between, but it doesn't mean that there was life on the moon. It just means that the Earth got hit once and it knocked some of this stuff out, fossils, or it knocked life out of the planet. That's one thing that let's hope that humanity never experienced, that, you know, because you'll learn it, you'll know if a meteorite hits the bottom of the Earth with such a force, sure, it's going to vaporize into the planet and all the rest of it, but anything else is going to go flying off the planet. You know, like when you get two of those balls that you can get that are attached to it, and you grab one and you let go and it goes. Same thing happens on Earth. Ever wondered why plants root? So there is going to be traces of Earth, past Earth, suspended in animation. No way. You will be like, what? Like little time capsules. We're going to find this. But what we've got to understand is it didn't mean that there was life on these planets. We've got to be very careful. Whoa, did this come from Earth? Because it can be quite exciting in the moment. Oh my God, we found a fossil. We found a fossil on, Mars. We found these seeds or life. We found these things that look like they're from Earth. How much digging did you do before you found it? I mean, because if it's just on the surface, there's a high chance this got knocked off of Earth, and a lot of it did get knocked off and has been scattered out. The universe is an amazing place, but we've got to be careful that we don't narrow our field of view on stuff like this. So I am a great believer because of how I understand things, and this is how I've been taught to understand things. So that some of the debris got knocked out. I mean, it wouldn't be inconceivable to go to Saturn, and if you could examine every single piece that's orbiting around Saturn, you're going to find something that links back to Earth from a past collision. This is then when we get an accurate record. If we could do this, we'd get an accurate record of how old life has been on the planet, because it would have been untouched by weather. Space weather, yes, but this would then be able to tell us how much space weather has interacted with that object for how long, and then we'd be able to piece back how long it's been in the solar system, just orbiting around somewhere, just because of all of the decay radiation that it's got on it from the star and different things like that. You'd be able to piece back, and then you'd be like, whoa, that means that Earth is older than we thought, or younger than we thought, or life has been on the planet a lot longer than we thought. So is it possible that it could knock a dinosaur off the planet? I believe so. I believe that it's only a matter of time. Now, if there weren't other planets that would, pick this stuff up, and depending on the makeup of the planet, is this going to affect it by trying to crush it down because it's going to treat it like a meteorite? Then, yeah, it's going to be traces of this is dinosaur, but it's going to be found on Venus or something, or it's going to be found on Mars, and you're just going to be like, that means there was dinosaurs here? No. It's possible and more likely that it got knocked off of Earth. And that is a very sad but true fact, and I think that it would be way too scary to tell people that could be a possibility. Because after all, the force of a meteorite hitting the planet versus it's basically no different to the ball coming down one side and the shock wave to absorb that impact is going to fling anything off of the surface on the opposite side. And then if that were to come back, it would then knock the meteorite. If we had, if we could visualize it like that, that's really, really kind of something, isn't it? So, and some of it's been flung into the sun, some of it's, gone off out into space. So even Earth has potentially got parts of it, a bit like Voyager. After all, gravity isn't very strong. Voyager is flying out like that, and you want to think of Voyager no different to a piece of life, a seed, bits of rock, bits of debris. So we could get a lot of false positives. So if we go to the moon and we just touch the surface, hey, look, we've got some stuff that's here on Earth. Well, maybe the planets and the moon collided at one time, or lots of meteorites hit the Earth and knocked loads of things off, and because the moon is in the orbit, it just gathered this stuff, and perhaps it didn't knock it too much force that it sent it off too far. In the meantime, the moon has been collecting this, let's say, debris, just hoovering it all up. It's just been laying on the surface. The only way to really know is to dig very deep into the moon's surface. And if you start to find it there, then that becomes more plausible. There is life has been on there at one time or another. But if it's surface and the crust, if it's in pockets where it's like located here on Mars but nowhere else, and a little bit over there, it's mainly on the crust, but when we dig down deeper there's nothing else, then we might learn that and learn an error that life was only here for this long, or because it's so spread about and it just doesn't make any sense, it's been knocked off of Earth. And that's quite weird to think about it, right? So gravity is not that strong, and when you think about it, that as to life has been knocked off and different debris from the Earth has been knocked off, also when a meteorite has hit Mars, we should have Martian particles, and lots of them, although not big chunks. There could be a few big chunks in there, but I would think more so smaller pieces that were big but got crushed down, and then it would perhaps melt the outer edge of the Martian surface that got flung out, and it would have made the outer edge molten, but on the inside it kept it as let's say sandy debris, let's say, and it caused a hard outer crust, so that when you smack it open you then have Martian soil within it. And that's what I think some of these rocks are. They're very much identifiable when you've picked up a few and smacked them open and you've got all of this debris out of it. You begin to learn pretty quickly that these rocks are few and far between, but they're more common than not. And how they got here is not because an alien went and picked up a load of Martian stuff and started scatting it around the Earth like modern God to a seed, right? I don't know, right? So it's far more likely that very big cataclysmic events happened, impacts that, luckily for the most part, they were more frequent in the beginning as opposed to now, and these are just pieces everywhere. But the cloud around all of the rocks and everything else around the star, the Oort cloud around stars. Well, when the star was in the nebula, the cloud, it explodes off all of this debris. There should not be an Oort cloud. So that Oort cloud in future generations is going to be a freaking gold mine. There's going to be a lot of knowing come from that. So civilizations move in the correct way. We push the envelope of what humans can do, and they keep evolving with this, and the technologies keep evolving. And we go to the Oort cloud. That is going to be a very interesting amount of knowing for the beings that get there and collect that. If I go to a solar system and I know there's been life here, well, I think there has, and they may have left their planet and scrubbed their past just in case. Perhaps they were hyper-paranoid beings that thought that if they hid evidence of them living, if something came across, they'd never be found. Well, I would look in the Oort cloud and have a look. Oh, okay, there's this type of life here. Okay. Because in it, there's going to be fossils. There's going to be debris of something that's been knocked off of each of the planets. And, oh, hello. Because the Oort cloud shouldn't be there. So a lot of events happening. An awful lot of events have happened. And especially with meteorites. And this would have flung debris off the planets and different things. And if there has been any with life, it's going to be in the Oort cloud. In the Oort cloud, you're going to find stuff that doesn't make sense, or you're going to find seeds it trapped in rock layers. Hang on a minute, break this open. Why there are seeds in here? Does that mean there's been life in the Oort cloud? No. Well, did the seeds come from outer space? That's very unlikely. If they did, they would already have been consumed by the planets in the beginning, the early days. Wouldn't make it to the Oort cloud. That means that it travelled and then stopped at the Oort cloud and started in orbit. That seems very unlikely. If it did, it would smack into something. This one would stay still and this one would then push off. Or both will push off of each other and the other one gets it. That seems very unlikely. If anything's been captured there, perhaps it's come from in the solar system as opposed to further away. Not saying that it hasn't come from further away, but if it has, it's going to be minuscule. And again, it's going to be in pockets. And then it would require testing to find out, you've got the same composition. Hang on, this soil here that these seeds have been found in is similar to this planet over here within the solar system. I'm going to hypothesize, whatever you want to say, that this came from here. And it's made its way here, X, Y, Z. If it came from outer space, it's going to have a composition with it that is separately, and it's going to be very unique to the inner solar system. So if I wanted to find past life, but let's say it's been covered with meteorites and the star has got old, the planet got old, the life had ceased to exist thousands or billions of years, and I want to find out whether there's life, rather than digging up all the planets to be a needle in a haystack, I'd be looking in the Oort cloud. I'd be looking in the debris that I could get, if I could get them. Then I'll take those, and this will give me a high indication whether there was life, because I'd find traces of something in that. So there's one thing I'm going to say is I bet that futures will find plants or seeds, tree eggs, inside the Oort cloud that humanity have never seen before. But they were abundant on the planet at one time or another, and the seed has been put into suspended animation. There's one thing that's great with seeds. They can cope with an awful lot. Man, I've stuck them in freezers, I've smothered them in ash, and then here, let's see if we can get this to grow. Wow, to my surprise, it is growing. So there, we're going to move on from that. So back to the rock at hand. And if I had a line of individuals with all the same tools, all the same types of object to come down on the object and start hitting into it, it's going to break. It's going to fracture across the side. And why do I know that it does this? Is because of plants. Plants come to Earth, and when they first start their evolving on the planet, there's one thing that is guaranteed, whether they came from space and evolved on Earth, or whether it riz up on the planet. There's one thing that they're going to have known. How to get through the hard rock. And roots, being roots, again, if you plant any plants next to a building, those small little hairs of those roots that seem so weak, so fragile, man, isn't that deceptive? So if we look at this very thin root, yes, and it gets thinner as we go towards the end, although my pen might not let me do that. There we are. So it gets nice and thin. If you have a rock, this root will go through the fissures and the cracks that are inside the rock layer, yes? And it might seem very small, insignificant, but as it starts to worm its way through, much like water before it freezes that breaks open the rock.
Yeah.
Plants have learnt the same process. And then early humans, indirect or directly, they use synchronicity and they use the same laws that govern the universe to achieve things. So a small hair, almost barely observable with your eye, getting into a fissure, into a rock. And as it gets in, and the more and more moisture comes into the root, and it grows, and as it begins to grow, you would think something so weak is just, impossible. And it begins to expand. Bit by bit, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Over a course of a longer time, freeze thaw is a bit more instantaneous. So you get water in a crack, and it begins to freeze, and it expands. And this makes the fissure bigger, 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 and deeper until the rock or the road completely erupts open and you've got a pothole. Or now you've got two rocks. It's separated the rocks. So not only is it weather that is using this process to break down the rocks and the rock layers on the planet, you've also got it where roots are doing this. But it's slow. It's over a longer course of time. I mean, if you think about how long a tree lasts for, some of them can outlive us. Especially giant redwoods. You should be able to see this on these quite easy. Everyone's fascinated with looking inside the human body with those MRI machines and watch someone have a drink. It's freaking fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
But what about a tree?
Yeah.
And its roots in the ground as it responds to the rocks and the hard surface. Soil is not natural. You won't find soil anywhere in the universe. Soil is a byproduct of plants. You need plants in order to get soil. You don't get soil without plants. And also, some of the places around the world, when seeds landed or they evolved on the planet, they would evolve with this knowing. How are you going to get through the rock layer? And they've spent evolution, where it doesn't seem like it, also reaching out, also expanding their knowledge on how to, let's say, eat the sun and take the particles from the sun. Because remember, the sunlight is, it might seem small and insignificant, and it pushes a solar sail. But if you imagine that, the plant is collecting this. And therefore, that small -0, if you want to call it that, or on a nanospectrum, 0.1 worth of mass coming from the star. There is an object leaving the star. It sounds barbaric to think that light is a particle. If the plant grabs this, it's combining mass to the planet. Our atmosphere seems to want to shove some of this off. So I think a little bit at a time, the planets are getting slightly bigger from the star. The star is giving objects. Now, if most of them didn't repel 90% of it and let some of it in and some particles come in, these are coming in because when you look at the northern lights,
you see them.
But because the magnetic field is constantly in flux and it's moving, if the magnetic field didn't move, okay, and the magnetic field on your planet stayed in one place, you would have a hell of a mountain. You wouldn't have a spheroid planet, you would have a rugby ball shaped one. And this would cause the planet to turn on its own even if the magnetic field stayed still. The objects that you have landing on the planet from the star, which come down as particles, seem insignificant. Well, they're just burning up. Yeah, but it's still, ash is still matter. It's still gaining mass from this process. And the star must be gaining mass from the universe, even if it has a magnetic field. If the star wasn't so bright and it's got a powerful north and south, you should see northern lights on the star. But you can't because the star is so bright. If you could dim it down, there must be northern lights. And the universe, the space debris in the I don't know, let's say the universe, there are particles everywhere. I'm pretty much sure of that. And I'm sure that the star is also bringing in particles, much like the planet is taking particles from the star. I think this is all how this is all working. And then black holes hoover up an awful lot of this debris anyway. But I think that if we could tone down the brightness of the star, we would see northern lights. But they're so much more fainter, so we don't see it. And I think that would be quite a weird thing anyway. But we often overlook it because we just think, it's just particles from the sun. Yes, but there are other stars also shimmering out their light and sending out particles and composition. Our star is obviously sending to its poles. And perhaps if our star didn't move, rotate, it could even be the driving force of the spinning. What causes a planet to spin? Rotate, all of them to rotate. What is it? What causes the stars to rotate? Well, I think it's mass. The little particles that hit into the... You would think that this is so barbaric, right? But the smaller it does, the slower the rotation. There is movement. And I think that is a part and parcel of it. With the exception to Uranus. Now, that must have some pretty damn big mountains on it. I reckon it's got some bulges on that thing. Just the way it's on its side. That would be very interesting. But the magnetic field is, unfortunately, it's got freedom to move irrespective to the rotation of the planet. I think that a magnetic field can move this way. And I'm not saying that the magnetic field is the be-all and end-all. I think the magnetic field highlights the fact that there is stuff coming on our planet. So, and they all say at the poles is the most abundance in resources. Well, if that's true, then it's coming from the star. It's coming from not just the star, but this hoovering process, although slower. In the beginning it was fast, but now it's probably trickling. So in the beginning a waterfall fell, and now as the less and less particles are around, it's relying on the sun, there's a constant trickle coming onto the planet. Therefore, planets are also getting big, not just from the debris that they hoovered up in their cloud, in their orbits, but they're also getting a little tiny bit from the star. The star is sharing too. And the different colours are telling you what different things the star is spitting out. And I think trees and nature and foliage is also adding to this rising layer. It's rise, slowly but surely. How come several things, lightning draws away moisture? It's not just that. You can also say, how is the land mass getting bigger? Well, perhaps because nature is absorbing this. Whereas usual, it might hit the planet at such a speed and bounce off. It hits the atmosphere, top layers of the atmosphere, and bounces off into space. But a lot of it, everyone says, what colour makes it so that you absorb more sunlight? And everyone says, it's black. Have you ever worn green in the sunlight?
No.
I would say the colour green would absorb more. Hence why trees are green. Leaves are green.
They know.
Want something, and they've made their colour not just by accident. With the ratio of minerals that they've got, they can practically be any colour they want. And there's a reason why they don't let their flowers become green. Some do, I'm sure, but they're very aware of colour. Because there are a variety of different colours in their flowers, but the flowers might need to be they're a bit more delicate than the leaves and have a different purpose. Leaves want to absorb things. The flower perhaps would become damaged if it was a certain colour ratio, so therefore it picks its colour. Because if not, plants could be any colour they wanted if they're leaves, but they're not. They're very specific. The most colour is green. Why do they pick that colour? That's not for no reason. They have chosen that colour for a particular reason. Now, if we're not a plant, we could look at that as it's got to be for this reason. Or is it the fact that it absorbs a certain something that it wants from the sun in order to help its photosynthesis?
Yeah.
Hence why most of it is green.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it's a colour that they've all shared across the board. Most of them have shared this. And some have a slightly different colour with a slight shade of green around the outside. Perhaps this part of the leaf, for whatever reason, doesn't need that. It needs something else. And perhaps this colour ratio, because we know that if we wear white, we feel cooler.
Yeah.
If we wear black, we feel hotter. If we wear purple, I think it's all the colours absorb a certain amount and respond different to the light. Such as planets. I think that there's a difference in the planet. Why is the planet blue? Oh, it's because of water, it's because of this, it's because of that. Yeah. But there again, does the plant rely on that? So that's a bit of blue, a bit of green.
Yeah.
So, and if nature starts to take over on the land mass, why do they not fit into the green? Why do they fit into the green but don't fit into the blue? And then the ocean starts to turn green, algae bloom. Yeah. And then what happens to the water when you have this greenery happen? Well, it gets warmer. Any pools of water that I've ever noticed any green in is warmer.
Yeah.
I've always noticed that. Yeah. The more greener the water, the more hotter it is. Less of the green, the more colder the water is. Yeah. Especially in terms of pits. So there were multiple pits around the area that I grew up in. And one, no life. None whatsoever. The water stank. Yeah. It was always freezing cold to the touch, no matter how long it baked in the sun. It was always cold. It always felt cold in that area. But yet you go to another one where there was an awful lot of this greenery inside it, lots of life as well. You touch it, and wow, this water feels so warm. Just based on all the other pits that we had been to, looking for the best fishing pit. Yeah. None of these are biting. Not this is not biting, this is not biting. And then you found one that was just, you wouldn't think to drop a rod in it, the amount of greenery that was in there. But when you did, there was loads of biting, no lots. You were fishing good.
Nice.
However, you never touched the water because you'd already learnt from the other pits that it was always cold.
Yeah.
Not this stuff. The day that I did touch it, oh my days, this is warm. We then all got into the water. And it was nice because you have the carp come up, and when they do their slapping of they'll slap you. That's quite a feeling. The first time it happens, it can freak you out. So don't panic. They're not going to get you, but it can make you think, especially when you're in water anyway. That monkey response comes to you when something slaps you, or an eel. They're even more freakier. You're in a large amount of water, you feel very vulnerable that there could be something in the depths, and then something comes up and slaps you.
Slaps you.
If you don't think and remain calm, you'll get out that water and never go
some people do. Some people are scared of, and they are asking if there's fish.
Yeah.
Because they feel uncomfortable with fish.
You'll be surprised. These carp were very fascinated with you. They were quite fascinated, and it seems that they would do it more. This sort of slapping sensation.
Investigating.
Yeah, I think they found it just as fun. Yeah. You were no threat to them. So, it seemed that you were not a threat, and this seemed to be more fun. And it became quite an experience, so I enjoyed that. It was a good memory to have. So, so for still water, that's very interesting. So, again, it was more associated with this green. It was more warm. And then, with that association, you knew when you could go in the water how green it was. Yeah. And when it became more green, you knew that water was going to be warm. So there was a lot of learning, unlearning, learning, unlearning, learning, unlearning, right? So what you assume, it took me by surprise. I touched it. Oh, that's pretty warm. No one sat there and said, well, because we assumed on the other pit that it was all cold. Yeah. And then when I touched this one, on my way home, I had to come across a few other pits anyway. I just went in just to dangle my hand in there. It was a lot noticeably colder. Yeah. So, and it could be because it was towards the end of the day, but the pit I had left was still warm, even in the evening. So it made for nice swimming, also fishing, a little bit of swimming. It was just an awesome experience. So hence it gets me wondering, with nature, it's by choice, it chose to be green not because
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
it doesn't know its own color. I think it has purposely made itself green for a reason, and hence why the bark is brown.
Yeah.
So why is the bark brown? Obviously, it doesn't want something, a particular something, and yeah. So but even still, with their roots the way they are, I often look at lightning. It makes me think of lightning in a different way. Why? Does lightning actually electrocute us in the same way that we're thinking? Or does it send little scouts out that bury themselves down deep into the open pores and finds a way through this way? And then expands into you sort of thing, with it's got to sort of dig its way in. Starts off thin, finds its way in, but this happens much quicker, and then the bigger bolt comes through you, and that's what causes the most devastation, I think. So every time I see it, I almost see in slow motion when I see a tree get hit by lightning, I see this very thin, small little strand hit the tree, and then the tree expands and explodes.
Yeah.
It's almost how it looks to me, like the lightning strike expands into it.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen it, it doesn't look like that, and the tree sort of seems to separate more at the top than it does the bottom. Like the lightning strike has gone in a fissure and then expanded into it. So it seems to be small, like a tornado almost. Smaller at the bottom, wider at the top. It's found its way in and then expanded into the tree. So, I don't know, I always found that perhaps it expands all at the same time, and my visual, reception or perception of that is just too slow to mimic that, and I'd be happily wrong on that. But for me, with roots, when it comes to plants, they're snidey the way they get into things, and they can wreck a building, much like ivy on the side of a house.
Yeah.
Bit by bit, the ivy looks nice, it looks good, but then the building starts to become fracturing begin on the building.
Yeah.
Because those tiny little roots get in the way it hangs on the side. I think this pulls it apart. And just the way, if you take two pieces of glass and put them slightly together over a root, the root begins to expand it open.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, and that's no different to a piece of big rock.
Yeah.
And plants are not stupid. They're quite aware that there are things such as bumblebees or pollinators.
Yeah.
They're quite aware of that. They also are very aware of what these bees like. What came first, the bee or the flower? Never mind chicken or the egg. And then who became aware of who, and how did you become aware of who? So trees may not have eyes, but it doesn't mean that they don't know. They do. They sense it. They must. How else do I get my pollen elsewhere? I know this thing is landing on me. I know this thing is remote pickupping. Therefore, that's a different way of knowing or seeing without the need for eyes. That's very clever for me. I find that very fascinating. And likewise, some of them just are sneaky. Here you go, fly. Look at this stuff. Doesn't it smell wonderful in there? And it comes in. Gotcha. Your dinner.
Yeah.
Right? So it also knows how to attract for beneficial properties, and it also knows how to attract for also beneficial properties, but as a lure. I'm going to eat you. I want your nutrients. And then it knows what type of chemical to drop in the bottom there, utilizing some raindrops, some of itself as well, in order to break down the fly or break down whatever has gotten into there. It's not just flies, by the way. That'll happen upon a lot of things, more than just flies. Some things fall into that liquid accidental, and more towards the jungle that you go, they get a lot bigger, and a lot more bigger stuff will fall into there. Also, they know the smell. So nature is very aware that you're lured by something. So it's aware of your anatomy. It's aware of what you like.
You have a nose, you have eyes, because they adjust the color of flowers for little insects.
Yeah, and also big. I think some such things like salamanders or stuff like that. Anything that's crawling through it will also allow them very cruelly to fall in a pit. Land in that sort of track they can't get out, and as a result they die, and mummification starts. So if I was an ancient Egyptian, I'd be looking at this process, and that would work as balming oil. Yeah, I would look from the Egyptians' balming oil to plants, certain types of plants that devour the nutrients out of a creature without actually damaging the outer shell. I would be looking more towards that, and it tends to make them look like an exoskeleton, which is fascinating, but also, how much are you aware, nature, and us humans sit there cutting all the shit down, cutting down all the trees. I think nature is very aware that it gives us fleshy fruit around the seed. And out of respect, I think that we were supposed to not eat the seed. Eat the flesh, but not the seed. The seed was meant to go untouched, or most of them, so it transitioned through us. I'll feed you, but please look after my baby. Move away from the tree. It would be aware of that. But where did the thinking come from to say, these things seem to keep eating me, but I know they move away from the tree? Now, plants must be able to read heat imprints. Because they're very good at understanding hot and cold. Well, if we're walking by and we're hot, or we cast a shade across the tree, I'm sure it's reading that. And there you could understand that it sees. Now, does it see into you to know what you want? Well, you eat it, it must be reading something from you, which would make sense, because when we die, we're put into the soil. It's going to be reading chemicals. And our breaking down, it's going to be reading that. So therefore, I think it's more intelligent. All life is intelligent. It all depends on your intelligence and awareness of intelligence that is separate to your intelligence. So our intelligence is on a spectrum. The plant's intelligence is still intelligent, but its intelligent spectrum is here, which is separate to what we view or class as intelligence. But if you look at it, that's actually quite intelligent. So intelligence, I think, is just a spectrum, and all things are intelligent. So any life out in the cosmos, by design, will be intelligent. Eventually become more so intelligent than others, but it all depends on where. And I think that nature cradled us for a reason. And I think it's aware of itself. I'm rooted in here. If I help you, you got to take me with you.
Spread me.
But what if they choose not to? I'm going to make sure of it. Here, let me give you all these nutrients. Let me keep giving you these nutrients. Let me keep giving you all of this stuff that you need. You need this. Look, now you need vitamin C. You must take me with you. Come on, look. And then slowly but surely, to guarantee it, because it's survival at the end of the day, therefore, it must be aware that there is an end point to Earth. So it could read more into the star than you realize. And that would be more intelligent. I trust a tree to give me an explanation of a star than anything else, as an indicator that, if we could tap into that intelligence, we need a multi-intelligence reading device. Well, it's in the pipeline. A device that's capable of tapping into all intelligence, but be able to read it. And what's more, if you could tap into a plant's intelligence, what could it tell you about the star? If you think about it, what could it tell you about yourself? What does it see that we can't see it seeing? Because we're unaware of that. I mean, it's where you focus at the end of the day, but the star, the nature has definitely cradled us. It's less poisonous than poisonous. If you think about it in that, there's more edibles than inedibles, but then some people say there's more inedibles than edibles, but you can survive on eating plant. And what's more, whether you are a believer in you need meat or you don't, nature also is in control of your food supply. If you think about it, without nature, what does your food eat? Well, we can give it some of these nuggets. Let's give it something man-made. Oh, fucking right. Right, so again, but it all stems from this eating nature. You are what you eat. So technically, even if you are eating a meat eater, you are still eating nature, but indirectly. You're
because
still
nature
vegan because
feeds,
your plant, the animal, your food source has eaten nature. And nothing is truly a vegetarian, and nothing is truly a vegan, and nothing is truly a meat eater. When we think about that, I was watching a cat, my cat. He's man, it's brutal. And trigger alert, I would say. If you're sensitive, I wouldn't listen to this next bit. But to think that a cat is a true meat eater, and to see him eat, hunt, grab another animal. I mean, it's up to him. I'm not exactly going to go getting in there going, "Hey, come on, vegan man." It's just not going to work. He's just going to look at me like, "You what?" Yeah, it's not going to actually really give a shit what I say. And he goes out and he hunts an animal. I won't label it. And when he starts to eat it, he eats what the contents of the stomach.
Yeah.
And this thing is it's not a herbivore. I can't call it a herbivore because even the herbivore eats things like slugs, snails, ants. Because I watched, this got me focused, right? This really, this unpacked quite amazingly, actually. It was one of those summers where I just sat, watched, and thought about it and just observed. It got me curious. So my cat, I was having an inspection, and technically I shouldn't have pets. Well, I didn't know that you had to ask for them, right? But I had a cat. I actually had two, maybe three. And I actually had three. And I didn't know you couldn't have cats, right? And when I was getting up to wind that you couldn't have cats, I had to have an inspection done. Whatever, I wasn't exactly going to hide it. Doesn't mean that I haven't, because I have. He went out. They all went out, right? They just particularly went out, and this guy was coming around to do the inspection and whatnot. In waltzes his mus with a fucking great big rabbit in his mouth. Yeah, what I'm doing is it yours? Yeah. Oh, aren't they hunters? And the guy, bless his heart, he was absolutely brilliant. He said, "You should really ask for that." Okay. He goes, "But you just asked me, did you?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "And I said yes. You can have one. Go on, you can have one. Just remember it. You should really ask in writing and do this, that, and the other." And he said, "The house smells nice. It looks nice. I wouldn't have known you even had." I was like, I got a fair few cats. I got 3." And he's like, "I wouldn't have known." He said, "I wouldn't have known. The house is very clean. So, you know, it went in my favour that they weren't going to take like a deposit or whatnot just in case your animals wreck the house." So he was very flexible with it, but he was also fascinated with him bringing in this, you know, when a cat's got something as big as that in his mouth. Everyone, look at me, look at what I done, look at what I got, aren't I so good?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to eat it. I'm just like trying to get him outside, and then he sits there with big eyes and growling at me. I just want you to fuck off outside and eat it. I want you eating it in here. He's pretty big, so in the end, I lost that battle. My inspection, and yeah, that's a memorable moment. Nick, you're amazing, but and not just for that particular reason, just lots of, you know, just this whole personality of when I, so anyway, with this little shite, you know, I kind of was watching him eat it. Wow, it's pretty morbid, isn't it? I was just, what is it that you just like about this? And, you know, so carefully the way he was eating the stomach contents and everything else. But I was just like, so you kind of like all the grass and dandelion and shit. He ate a fucking lot, apart from the ears and the feet and the tail and the shit sack and maybe a bladder. I don't even know what those things were, but that was all that was left. Everything else was, he ate the freaking lot, bones and all. That really got me thinking, like, if this was his preferred choice, and then after that he come back every other day with one, and he'd also eat his cat food, he'd demand cat food as well. So even if I had to put him on a diet because he started getting big, I had to keep him in. In order for him to go on a diet, if I had to put him on one, I'd have to keep him in in order to stop him from hunting, because what I didn't give him in food, which I did give him food, I never once not give him food, he would make up for in hunting. So he'd eat more outside.
Yeah.
You just can't control cats, right? So it's really tough to put them on a diet. My word. And anyway, so when I went out one particular time, I could see him over in this area to wonder how he was hunting. How do you get hold of a rabbit? Are you chasing this thing around or what? What's your deal here? And plus, he looked like he weren't moving. He was I just kept seeing him just sort of laying in the grass, just these little ears, these little radar dishes sticking out, just doing this, just waiting. So I crept over and I thought, you know what? I've got nothing better to do. I'm going to sit here and watch you. It was a beautiful day it was. I enjoyed that. So as I was watching him, I then see, these little ears come up. And here comes a rabbit. He's very aware of which way the wind is blowing. That's interesting. I didn't even know rabbits would detect that, but whatever. And then as the rabbit starts mopping around, I see him wiggling his little ass. As he's getting in his sort of, they go to pounce, but they never actually do. They just sort of spend a long time wiggling their ass, And that's what he was doing. But everything was all focused in. And then the rabbit turned and got more comfortable, and then more came out. It was just waiting. He had found where they were digging and when they do their shits.
Yeah.
He found that. That's what he found. And he knew that he weren't going to run around chasing them as I thought, No, he was using his intelligence. Find where they go, not nestle down, and just wait. Patiently wait. And it wasn't until this particular rabbit turned his back, he or she, it was big, and he just whoosh, and he got it. It was over within, I don't know, it wasn't very long. It seemed like it went on longer than it did.
Yeah.
And it was over for that. There was nothing I could have done anyway, and it's perfectly natural. I felt a little bit like David Attenborough. I was just not there with my camera as we see the cat's sneaky bastard behaviour. Right, so I am not really doing a great impression of David Attenborough then. He leaps to it, grabs the rabbit, and it's all over. So, and it was. The other rabbits hightailed out there, but not this one, unfortunately for the rabbit. But fortunately for Mus, he got it. And that's how you're so successful. And then when he buggered off, you would think that this would be enough for the rabbits to bugger off for the day. Nope. After that drama, a little bit longer, the same little ears come out again, and out they come bouncing. A little bit of licking and a bit of this, and then the rest will start to come out. They're watching what they're eating. And, this was a pretty boring day to anyone else, but to me, this was enjoyable. I enjoyed this day. They were very memorable. I then go over to where they were, and they all scuppered as pretty much as that. And then I started to pay attention to what they were eating. This stuff was infested with meat. Yeah. Although small, you'd say insect, it's still meat to me at the end of the day. But they were eating it with this stuff climbing on it, with this stuff, happening away. Yeah. And then I got into a position where I could get a bit more, and I tried to take a leaf out of Mus's book. Didn't work that day, didn't work another day, didn't work another day. Oh my days, just trying to see whether they were actually eating this stuff or not. It would have been far more easier for me to put a camera there, but you know why I didn't? I was too worried that someone else might come find the camera and take it, and then, oh my days, lack mindset, right? It cost me a lot of money for this. I don't want to leave it unattended just to capture this. And I waited and waited. After a few days, I actually got my answer. They came out. I can't see it. I just got to keep still. And then, they were eating the insect slugs, different things like that. They were chomping it. They weren't even exactly looking at it. They were looking over here. Whilst munching down on this vegetation. They didn't know what was going in their mouth. I assumed that most of it tasted good. And then they say herbivore. And then I was thinking, they're not herbivores. To be a herbivore, I thought it meant straight up they only eat vegetation. They don't eat any meat. That's how I was brought up. And then I was like, that's not true. they'll eat, yeah, they seek out this food, but they're not exactly biting a piece of it, running over to a river and washing off all of the bugs, right? And the insects and the slugs, and they're not wiping it all off. No, they're not. They're like Shin-A. It made me think months after that when I got, something went to land on my, I was like, ooh, what's that? I started flicking it off, and I thought, I'm definitely not a rabbit then, am I? I would eat meat, but this particular fly landed on here, I don't want to eat it. And what's more, I didn't want to eat the whole freaking, crisp that I had. I didn't even want to eat that at all because the fly had landed on it. Yeah. I was fussy. My human experience was fussy. But that rabbit was not fussy. And then I noticed that Mus wasn't fussy either. And he's a meat eater. But he's not. He's only a meat eater because he became domesticated. In the same way he wasn't like, oh, I like the stomach. Oh, I better go down to the river. You can never see a cat near water? Forget it. I'm going to wash out this stomach content. I don't eat greens. So it looked to me like both the animals were having roast dinners. Meat and veg. Right? So hang on. One was eating majority meat, small amount of veg, just to make sure you're getting your 5 a day, Mus. And the rabbit was eating mostly vegetation with speckles. It was like a roast dinner in reverse. We were all eating roast dinners. That's what we were doing. All of us. Ours were just painstakingly cooked and washed and done the perfect human way. Mus's was just, I'm going to eat all of this, including the stuff that's in the stomach. I know it sounds morbid. And the rabbit was like, you know what? I'm going to eat this vegetation with the meat. I don't care. And it didn't exactly go, I didn't like that. It happily munched it down without a care in the world. Sideways eyes. So, really, did it care? No. Are things truly a meat eater? No. Are things truly a leaf eater? No.
Omnivore.
So everything is an omnivore. Technically. Most things. Maybe there is, maybe earthworms or something else. But there again, if there was something dead in the ground and the earthworm was travelling around, is it going to eat into that? We don't know. If it does eat into that.
Probably, yeah.
By mistake? Nature? Nature must be vegan. Doesn't eat anything. Eats sunlight. And then I looked at the soil and then was like, but if something died there, it's going to eat that anyway.
Yeah.
But it's not going to go, oh, my roots! Oh! Yeah. I don't do meat. No, thank you.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, fucking well, these are good nutrients over here. I'm going to straw this up.
Yeah.
Then look at spiders. That must be the exception to the rule. Spiders. But then if the fly's hampering down on some fruit and the spider eats it, that fly has also just eaten some fruit and the spider has just liquidized all of the shit inside the fly anyway. Happy sucking. So you are also having a roast dinner. Yeah. So everything started having roast dinners to me. Right? So, and that's the weirdest thing. So the human experience. When I leave here, what would I have learned about all life on the planet? Well, everything eat roast dinners. That's it. So what did you learn on the earth? Well, I learned everything had actually eaten roast dinners. The truest form of a vegan is someone that is human. That's it.
Yeah.
And the truest form of a meat eater is someone who is human, who would just eat the meat.
Yeah.
And then it got me thinking, the animal has been eating nothing but vegetation. Oh, unless you disregard the human making of, nuggets. Is that what they're called? Nugs? Not sure. The shit that you feed the farm animals, that stuff. That seems counterproductive to me. You've got a field and it grazes. Why do you need to pay to give it this food? Which blew my mind. So monopoly and roast dinners. Anyone? So I'm just kidding. You know, whatever, each to your own. If that's what you do and you're good with that, then keep going, you know. There must be a purpose behind it. So, technically, you know, roast dinner-y type. So, over evolution of doing this sort of stuff, we're a little bit of both. We all are. In fact, life supports life in that way then. Life is devouring life, and we, the human, we get very fussy and finicky. We are the exception to the rule, I think, that we want to be different from that sort of what's natural. Now I sit there thinking about hunter-gatherers. Were they like, oh, this has got, it's got grass. Ugh, let's remove some of this. You know, are they going to chuck away things? A deer, I think, all can be eaten except for the antlers and the
hooves, maybe,
and perhaps there was something else in it. The antlers, I think you can eat most of the deer. You don't have all of it, even the bone juices.
The bitter organ, what is called? The one that has bitter stuff in it. Bitter stuff in it.
I think the urinary tract, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know how that one is called. If you puncture it, everything becomes bitter.
Contaminated. Yeah, I think it's that and the shit sack, perhaps. Yeah. But there again, I watched one person somewhere back in the day. Interesting. Very strange. Never seen it before in my life. Explaining about how fresh horse manure, and it's after all, it's just grazed grass. And then I saw someone grab up a massive hunk of fresh horse manure and squeeze the juices out of it and drank it. And said that it's nutritious, it's this. I'm just like, yeah, each to their own. I'd rather drink from a river before we get there, but perhaps if I was travelling in a desert somewhere and this was life or death situation, sure, hand me a scoop of horse shit. Right? Yeah, whatever. I don't know, that was a bit extreme for me, but I have seen that. And another one was somebody else with camel. I think it was camel.
Yeah.
Perhaps, you know, extreme survival probably on that one. The one with the horse was no survival. This person didn't even need any. Yeah. It was just to prove a point that, you know, this could be drunk. And I was just like, but why? Fascinating. The words were enough. I could visualize this myself, but you just gone down, proved it to me, you know? Yeah. Admire you. Yeah. Does your wife kiss you with that mouth after? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's fresh. Okay. Yeah, so, you know, this got really fascinating, this conversation here. So, but yeah, so lightning, humans, space debris, fossils, life, nature, yeah. And also touches of knowing. Everything eats roast dinners. Yes, we're ticking all the boxes. So I'm glad I played around with that. But yeah, just a few days worth of just sitting back and watching the world, and kind of a bit of a funny situation with the. It wasn't the landlord technically. It was someone that worked in a company for the landlord. Yeah. I mean, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. He couldn't have come in with that animal at the right moment. That was perfect. But what a situation to remember. Yeah. And then he taught me how to get rabbit. So that's one thing I wanted to try on from that, but it never materialized, was not to do anything but whether I could get a rabbit by using the same process, by mimicking mus. Could I do this? Could I wait in the spot? And I think the answer is yes, I could. And deer was another one that I found a deer inside a pit, a deep pit, man-made, but still. So I helped it out once it calmed down. I had to sit around there and wait for it to just sort of chill the fuck out. So yeah, but if not, I could have had a really good meal, but I chose to, you go on. You've probably been through enough, but yeah, I remember that. It looked back at me. That's strange. Like, it sort of moved away. I was very cautious in the beginning. Man, the fucking thing wouldn't sit still. So yeah, So there you are. And I kind of did it probably, it wasn't great, but it's all I could grab was it to help it out. All I could do. And then I was a little bit scared that it might, jab into me afterwards or something. But no, it really didn't. It sort of just strutted off and then just looked back and just then carried on marching its way off. I was just like, wow. So I wondered if our ancestors dig big pits, hunting would have been done smart. They wouldn't have had the energy to utilize energy before the invention of stone tools or anything else like that. I think they would probably just dug, or they use vine. They would have learnt roping. I think roping is a very big skill that our ancestors had already mastered way before stone tools, and I think that skill came in handy when it came to putting a stone to a piece of stick. Was using it by their skill that they had learned of roping. And I think this roping came from climbing a tree. The problem is with deer, their sense of smell is amazing. And also the way they can hear sound is creepy as anything. But if you're up a tree, I've noticed, deers don't give a shit. It's almost like they don't notice you. So I've climbed a tree. Been up there for many hours because it was a beautiful day and it was a swift breeze. They must have mistaken my movement for natural rustling and never thought to look up. And they were all down below the tree, happily grazing, even though I was moving about up there. And then I thought, if I had a vine, I could lower that down. I could get one. I could get more than one in this process. Yeah, they'd all run, but they'd probably learn pretty quick, so I'd have to stay out of the way so that they didn't remember that. They don't have goldfish memory, and goldfish memories are a lot longer than frickin' 5 minutes, let me assure you on that. Because when fishing when a lad, there was this part of the river where it started to bend. Tons of fish from sizes of this, don't know what type they were, some ruds, some this, some that, anyway. So, I don't know, some about this big. From what it looked like, perhaps they were smaller or bigger depending on the water, yes, causing a magnification or not. And then the smallest were probably about this. And there was probably 150 of them there, give or take, I don't know, didn't count. There was lots, too many to count. And what they would do is they were underneath this undercut where this tree, its roots had been exposed by the water current, had eroded that away. They would go in there and they would periodically, it was very understandable that they had a very short memory, but it's bollocks, man. They came out, bit around for a bit, kind of strange, in the, this sediment, if you want to call it that, or silt, whatever. They were eating around in that, picking around at that, and then they'd move all together. And then they'd come around, and then they'd go back under. And they kept doing this very periodically. Nah, I'm fishing here. And I didn't have a fishing rod. I just used a piece of, I don't know if you want to call it, line. And I tied it to my finger and I just cut off what I needed for the length. Makeshift. I dropped that. So I'm luring it around a little bit so it doesn't go too far to the bottom and it's not too high or too low, with my bait on the end, and one of them come up and got that. I was like, fucking right, mate. Just pulling this fish up. And I was like, yeah, nice. Got the descourger in and removed the hook. And I was like, right, excellent. This. I wonder how many I could get. Anyway, so I scooped up some water from the river anyway, and I popped it in there. I was only going to keep it for about an hour and see what I could get for an hour. After that, I'd release the fish again and then go and get on with my way. But what happened next was I dropped it in, did the same thing. Those fish did not touch it. The rest didn't touch it. This insulted my education, what I'd been taught. I was in school at the time anyway. I wasn't in school on the time of fishing. It was a summer holiday. Just gone and got my license from the post office. And I felt really cheated that my license was some bullshit, right? My mum made me go and get a license. I didn't even know you had to get one. But she was like, you gotta get a license. And I never knew that. So anyway, got me license and whatnot. Cost me like a fucking fair old amount of money for a kid. But anyway, so like, I was so pissed at that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And these fucking obnoxious memorizable fish. Bloody fucking, I'm not gonna eat you. I might, but I'm not, right? And they swim past it. They didn't give a shit. They knew it was there. Some of them would nudge it, and I thought they were toying with me.
Yeah.
They were fucking toying with me. I thought they'd nudge it, but they wouldn't bite it. They would, well, I say bite. They don't really, whatever. They'd nudge it. They'd sort of knock into it, and then I was just like, man, you little shits, it's just like fucking sending me a message. I can feel it. I can feel that, but they would not take it. It's almost like they were saying, no, it's there.
Yeah.
So what the fuck? And I was looking at the other one, feeling sorry for himself in there, or herself, I don't know. Are you a shim? I don't know, whatever. It could have been a hermaphrodite for all I knew. And, yeah, nope, didn't bite it. So, yeah, after an hour of this, and then I was captivated. And 1 hour turned into 2, right? I was only planning to be there for an hour to see what I could get, and then I was going to move on to elsewhere. I was fascinated with, 5 minutes have gone by, you lot should have forgot. Yeah, your memories are supposed to be, your memories are A1 whilst the way I'm sitting in it, Damn when I get back to school. Damn when I get back to school. We're going to be having a debate about this. You told me something that was wrong. Anyway, that like I said, an hour turned into 2. And then the best part of the day. Anyway, I'd already released this one back in, probably it was maybe just shy of a couple of hours. Ran over a bit. And I let it in, quite happily goes and joins the group. Just tell them that they're going to bite it. I'll let you go, Maybe you'll... No, next day, I'm going back there. There I am on my bike, pull up, get there. Wonderful. Try again. Nothing. Same response as yesterday, they were just knocking it. Alright, I'm going to leave you for a couple of days and I'm going off to the pit, going to see if I get any luck there. I got luck there, but it wasn't much.
Yeah.
So, once again, I'm at a pit, and I'm getting one after the other, depending on where my line was. One area I got a fish, nice. Go back in that area, because there must be more. Wait, nothing. Go to a different area of this pit, bite, get a fish, right? Next area, got a fish. After that, nope. The carp, I could see them slapping the water. As I say, this was the same pit where they're swimming and slap the belly. An amazing experience. Yeah, nothing. Next day, after it's been a day with these other ones in the river, they should have well forgotten about this. In it goes. Again, same behaviour. Nudge it. No, it must be my tackle. I need some different tackle. Okie dokie. I got a fishing rod. I had lots of them, but I choose not to use them because they were just pain in the ass. Always get tangled in trees. Always get a tangle in it. Always. This is so ridiculous. I'd much rather just wrap it on my finger, tie it to my finger, and do it that way. I have more control of it. This rod fishing was just not me. Anyway, so tried different wire, tried different hooks, tried smaller hooks, tried bigger hooks. They just would not bite. And then my friends come riding over. What are you doing, fishing? Can we have a go? Have you got a license? No, then no you can't. Maybe you can, but you run the risk, because my mum said if a bailiff comes down and they see you, they were going to tell you off and you're going to get fined and this, that and the other. And I haven't even seen one bailiff, but I spent all my pocket money on this, but there you are, never mind. So, just kid stuff, right? Anyway, so what are you doing? Wasting my time with intelligent fish? You know what? These things remember more than fucking 5 minutes, I can tell you. I thought it was a week. No. It's not even like the whole summer. You've got 6 weeks now. These things have remembered. And what's more, next year. I get you next year, right? So it's summer holidays winding down and whatnot. And sometimes I did go on weekends to try. Nothing. By that time, my license expired, so I'm going to wait until next time before I even want to put any money out in a license of fishing water. If I was taking them and eating the fish, I'd understand the license, but I am not. So why should I pay for that? A license to fish in a river that doesn't belong to anyone. I couldn't understand that. I just didn't get it. Anyway, and yeah. So next summer comes about. I try again. Do you think they bit it?
No.
Did they fuck? Same, but there have been generations since then, or were there? There weren't, but you know, the small ones have got bigger and they'd had their young and whatnot. How did they tell the other ones not to bite it? How did they tell the newer fish, the new ones, not to bite that? Then I learned very quickly on that the bigger fish taught the smaller fish.
Mm-hmm.
The smaller fish seemed to copy the bigger fish.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't, you know, the bigger fish seemed to go in and start, you know, eating into the silt and whatnot,
Yeah.
but nudged that, but didn't bite it, but were biting and hoofing out stuff in there. I could see them, you tricky little bastards. And, yeah, you know, you're going to have to do fish fingers tonight. No, just kidding. But, yeah, no, they wouldn't do that, but the little fish were observing this, and then they copy it. It's just like, damn, you are more intelligent than anything. And then after that, Mum, can I have some fish? What do you want fucking fish for? Because they're quite intelligent. Then I got a fish that was thick as shit. I'm not gonna lie, just like me. I don't know. And I got a friend or whatnot, it didn't seem to actually notice any different. And I was just like, man, if I dropped a hook in here, you'd bite it. I know you would. I reckon you'd bite it every single time. I was fascinated with fish after this. Then I got that koi in a tank. Small one, a baby anyway, and everyone was like, you shouldn't have that in a tank. It's like 6 foot tank. I think it should be alright in here. It's huge. You saw it, right? I was like, this big. Oh, I love that koi. It's brilliant, man. Sassy bastard. Anyway, so yeah, it didn't bite. They didn't bite after that, and yeah, that then just gave me a whole. I had absolute respect for fish. I never actually brought it up, although I kind of did with the teachers sort of thing. Yeah. And it just sort of had that sort of smirked grin. Perhaps it was your way you were fishing. It was not. I changed my bait. But yeah, no, they are. So they're not stupid just because it seems like it. I guess it's just our understanding. I'm sure there are some not intelligent animals out there, but if they were, how do they survive? You know, how old are you then? Like 14 days old. Well, you're getting close to 16, so you must have done something right. So, I don't know, I had a newfound respect for and what intelligence was, and it made me question. But, so yeah, I think fish, unless it's a goldfish, I probably understand that. Eat, but it must be boredom that makes it do that. A scientist must have tested a goldfish with this memory stuff. And it's probably because it was bored, not because it was choosing to forget, but just, you know, oh, I'll do this, there's nothing better to do anyway. It just seems so sad in there, and the other fish didn't seem sad. They seemed sort of, yeah, quite content, bit fearful, but content. Yeah. And koi's in the pit, man, they were having a time of their lives. They were just swimming around, slapping the water, skimming across it. The koi seemed to have the most fun inside the pits, so that's why I got a koi later on. Ghost koi, I think they were known as. And my brother, it was funny, I never thought they could see through the tank glass. I thought I just saw a reflection. They probably do, but when the light is brighter in the room, maybe they don't see it, and when the light's off in the tank, or slightly dimmer, it was doing this up and down the glass. And I was just like, man. And Max was sitting there going, do you think it can smell the sandwich? He was eating a sandwich, right? And he was, he devoured one triangle of it, and he was going on to his other triangle, some sort of big beefy meat, right? I don't remember what it was, but it was a sandwich of some meat. And I could see just this koi, right? There's a couple of pictures where I got, and he sort of, yeah, I don't know, that was actually, I call it a he, and then he laid eggs. Lots of eggs, so that's a she. There's definitely a she, right? But I honestly thought that was a boy, like a male fish. That you could, I got a male and a female, but I forgot which one the shopkeeper said which was what. So I just assumed, you look like a boy, and this one, you look like a girl. I think you're a girl and you're a boy. Big surprise. You know, he is laying eggs. Hey, that should be a shit. Wait, hold on, what? Which one? The koi. The water was murky as anything. Oh my days, how did you live in that stuff? That is something, man. Even my filters and everything, man. That was some. And they even had little fry. The filter was not happy because it also sucked him into the filter. Oh man, there was. I didn't even. Man, there was so much I had to do. They really needed. Oh my days. And then I just had an abundance of fish and was just like, I don't know what to do with them, man. Why does everything around me start breeding, man? Yeah, there's so much. Got freaking kittens, now we got fish. Pet shop, do you want them? They're really, not really. What am I supposed to do with them? We could try selling them privately. My brother ended up selling them. Anyways, this koi, she was up and down on the tank. Up and freaking down, right? And Max has then gone to the tank and he's gone like this. He's started going, oh. All of a sudden, there is this massive torrent of water come from the top. Now, for me, I assumed, because it all happened so fast, it either sucked or blew a load of water out, which seems not correct, or sucked the top of the water and caused all of this water to go showering over, and perhaps it was just coincidence and it coated Max completely with water. And he was like, oh my fucking god! Like in shock. At the moment that he's going, he's like teasing.
Yeah.
You're going to get wet for that. And it did. So it could have just been that it could smell it because of the air pipe.
Yeah.
That goes into the tank. I had built a wooden structure around it. The air intake was in the wooden piece at the front. It came down there. Just in case it ever leaked, it had a place where, for some reason, there was water coming out, the airflow. It was connected to the part where the water is jetting out from the pump, and it was breached in, and as the water forces through the pipe, it starts sucking in the air. Well, one particular time, the water started coming out of that pipe. Of both of them, actually. But I had it go into a trough that then went into a tray that then drained away because I didn't ever want to experience a flood in the property. And I also made it so that the water intake for the water was higher. So that if it, I had to calculate it, it just took me a little bit of time, that I made it at a certain level, so if it's too high, it will no longer, it will suck in air and the filter stops working, and then it stops jetting, and then it causes the water, and it's dangerous for your fish. So it had to be deep, and they instructed on the, on the setup, you should put it down deep where the stones are, and I was like, no, that's not happening. Just in case it ever punctured a hole, I didn't want to have to clean up a whole lot of water. I just didn't want that. And I knew that that's happened because a lot of people told me that there's, their filter went wrong. So I calculated in this tub that was inside the cupboard that if it, started leaking the water out the air intake, that it would do so, but it would take X amount of time to do so. The tank would lower in water and the bin would fill. And as the bin would fill, it would reach the intake of the filter and then it would stop. So that there was still good amount of water in the tank that I didn't end up killing all my fish. Secondly, they didn't ever lose the pressure of the water in there, so that it drained the tank. Some people have lost a lot of fish this way because something breaks and then that thing capable of moving like 240 something volume liters of water per second. Think how quick that can drain your tank. I used it to drain the tank when cleaning it, so it didn't take very long. All this time I've been doing it with a freaking jug. No, we're doing it this way now, baby. And then we're also rigging it into the tap so that we can fill it up just as quick. So yeah, and then keeping its temperature and everything else. But yeah, You got to do it in such a way, because if not, that is extreme for fish, tap safe, and all the rest of it. It's a lot of pain in the ass, but if you've got it, it works pretty well. And I'm OCD at certain things, and murky water I did not like. So if you remember it, it was always crystal clear water for the longest time ever. Lots of natural plants in there as well also help with that. And I also found some other techniques as well. In the end, I got pretty good with that by making the filter suck all the debris. Anytime you have stones, I just done away with stones. They done me in the end, because after a few weeks with stones or that small gravel, and it costs a bomb, you will always have a murky tank, because all the crap and stuff falls into the stones. But I haven't got any microorganisms in the tank to break that down. So it's not exactly like a river. So I got some of this smooth AstroTurf and then built that up upon it so that you could suck in it was wide enough to take in the debris. I wanted to rebuild this again at a later date when I got a bigger tank. I just never got round to it. And when it's slightly raised up, all of the debris can fall in, and they usually sit at the bottom of the tank. But because the filter pipe was there, it's hell of a risky though, because if your pump breaks down, that's one thing that had me a little bit paranoid. But anyway, results of clear water quality, brilliant. So there was never any crap sat in the tank. And if there was, all I needed to do was just go in with my hand and wipe the bottom of the AstroTurf. And all of that stuff wouldn't leak into the water. No, it went down and sucked into the filter, and the filter acted like a water hoover. That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. And then there was one time, you didn't see it because towards the end, it didn't last very long, but I had an old camera flash, the ones that make that... You ever hear that when they go to charge up? They make that high-pitched squeal. That's me in. And it also made it having a lightning effect. Literal lightning effect in the water. Wow. Fish loved it, actually. It was weird. I tried to incorporate a lot of natural stuff. I also had a moon phase in there as well as light phase. Well, after all, they've been taken out of a natural environment. So it would be my responsibility, I felt, that I had to give them sunlight. And also I had to give them moon phase. And this is what caused them to breed, I think. After I did all of that, that's then they were just breeding every other week. You know, it was like, it's too much, man, there's too much jam in the water. This is bad, man. I just don't get it. I realized why the sea was so salty after this. Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to get that in. But even still, I'm going to leave this video here because I think that, you know, I've packed a lot into it, but yeah, there you are. I had fun with that one. That's good. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Let's go.